Welcome to the Lone Wolf Podcast. I'm Wolf, and today joining me is my friend Drew Dog, and we are here to talk about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and my crazy theory that just might actually be true. And if the thumbnail is what brought you here and you see that TWO Sephiroths, then that's pretty much what I'm heading toward in this theory. But I do have some, I wouldn't say substantial evidence, but I do have some evidence that point to this being true. And I've laid it all out for Drew Dog. And what's going on, man? You doing all right today?
Man, yeah. Off of work.
That's always a good
Always
thing.
good when you're off of work.
You know
Got
it.
a 3-day weekend. Shoot, yeah.
Nice. So I'm just going to go ahead and get into it because I hate videos when people have theories and they take forever to get into it. So we're just going to jump right into this thing. And I just want to mention before we get going, there are going to be spoilers, and that all videos from this that I'm going to be showing from Remake and Rebirth are from my own personal gameplay. So I just want to throw that out there. But there are going to be massive spoilers for both the end of Remake. If you haven't played that, there's going to be spoilers for the end of Rebirth and the original Final Fantasy VII. If you haven't played that, the one way back on PlayStation from 1997, then there's going to be some spoilers. If you haven't played that, you're probably pretty far behind anyway, but there's definitely going to be spoilers for all three. Exactly. So we're going to, let's just jump into it. So for this theory, we're going to have to go back to the end of Final Fantasy VII Remake. And right here, as you can see, and I paused it way too late, Sephiroth has been defeated. He comes down, and if I pause it there, you can see that black wing. Now, I saw in one video, and I can't really remember where I saw this. I don't remember the video or who posted it, but they said, and I wish I could because I would definitely reference it and give them a shout out, but they said that Square Enix has said, anytime you see a black feather or a black wing, it means that somebody has come back from the dead. So this is crucial. The black wing right here on Sephiroth is absolutely crucial to this theory because I believe, let's see if I've covered everything before I go ahead and reveal what I'm going to say here. Oh, one more thing. He shows up at the end of Remake. Actually, he shows up all throughout Remake. But if you played the original Final Fantasy VII, we know that anytime Sephiroth shows up, and here come the spoilers for the original game, that anytime Sephiroth shows up, it is, I'm just going to go ahead and let this play through. It is actually Genova appearing to be Sephiroth. It's not actually Sephiroth himself. But in Remake, I believe that anytime you see the black wing or black feather, and at the end of it, right before they go through the portal, he shows up and coaxes him to go through the portal to change fate. Aerith says, "You're wrong." And she doesn't say it in a "you're wrong" in a right or wrong way. She says it in a way like you're wrong, like you're not supposed to be here. And this brings me into my theory. Sephiroth, anytime you see him with a black wing or you see the black feather before he appears in Remake or in Rebirth, is actually Sephiroth from the original game post-Advent Children. And the only time we ever see Sephiroth with a black wing is after the events of the original game. So, I believe he came back and he created a branching timeline. I believe that the events of the Final Fantasy VII happened. The events of Advent Children happened. He died. He went into the live stream and he somehow made his way back to the beginning of the events. And just like in Rebirth with all the branching timelines, Sephiroth created a branching timeline that is the Remake Rebirth timeline. And he's doing this to create all these worlds, which in Rebirth we see that he has done. So instead of just inflicting a wound upon the planet to bring the live stream out so he can control one planet, he's trying to control all of these worlds at once, which is the plan he lays out. That makes me believe that this is and anytime he's talking about this, he's got the black wing. And we can go ahead and fast forward to the rebirth. So when we move forward to rebirth, we see Sephiroth. Anytime he appears, he either appears with the wing, with the whispers, or he is introduced with a black feather. I believe this is Advent Children, post Advent Children Sephiroth, that has come back to create a branching timeline. Drew Dog, you have any thoughts on this so far?
I wonder if the original game. Okay, let me back up. So, like the remake, the rebirth, we're all talking about different timelines and everything like that.
Right.
But are you trying to say that in the original game, it was one timeline, it was one world?
Right.
And then the post-Advent children Sephiroth changed that and created branching timelines.
Yes and no. So here's what I'm thinking. Because in Remake, we see the Whispers, right? They make their appearance in Remake. They were nowhere to be seen in the original. Anytime something has been changed, the Whispers show up to put it back on track. Right before they're going to Reactor 5 to set off the bomb, Cloud in the original is already included in those plans. He has to go to 5 so he can fall off the bridge and meet Aerith, and so the rest of the story can proceed as normal. In the remake, Jesse's supposed to go and they let Cloud go. He did his one job, they blew up the reactor, he's done. Jesse, then the Whispers interfere. Jesse is injured, and now Cloud has to step back in. They have to go back and get Cloud to go to Sector 5. That's what makes me think that it's actually a branching timeline rather than the original. Because if it was the original timeline from the original game, everything would play out exactly as it had in the original. No Whispers needed to put things back on track if they ever did get off track, which they don't, because it happens one way. But with all these branching timelines that we see in Rebirth, so many different things happen and they have to be put back on track. So many, like all these worlds we see, everything's happened differently. And when they enter that portal at the end of they enter the portal at the end of Remake, it's like a little pocket universe. It's where he goes to the edge of creation to fight Sephiroth at the end of Remake. And they create branching timelines in that in that little pocket universe. Because at the beginning of Rebirth, we play Zack, and he sees all of their bodies except for Cloud being loaded onto the helicopters. Barrett, Tifa, Red, and Aerith. They created a branching timeline when they went into that. They, of course, are in their rebirth remake timeline, and they created a branching timeline where Zack is still alive. It gets very confusing, I know, but whenever they enter these pocket universes, it creates a branching timeline. So Sephiroth somehow came back. He coaxed them into creating the different timeline to create branching worlds, to create as many worlds as possible, because his ultimate goal, as revealed in Rebirth, is to bring all those worlds together in the reunion so he can control all of them. So as we see playing out here in the timeline, in the live stream where Tifa is in the weapon, that's Sephiroth post-Advent Children right there. Anytime you see him with a wing or with his whispers or preceded by a black feather, post-Advent Children Sephiroth. And who else would be strong enough to take down a weapon by himself other than post-Advent Children Sephiroth?
So I guess my question is, I mean, who is creating the different timelines? Is it Sephiroth that is creating all the different timelines? Because I know that there's times in Rebirth when some of the characters do. Such the biggest example is Zack close
Right.
to the end when he
Right.
can either choose to continue left in the subway or he can choose to go rescue Cloud. He creates new timelines. So is it Sephiroth? Is it all the major characters? Um,
I think Sephiroth set it up to where he created the original branching timeline, which was Remake. He shows up at the end of Remake so they can create more branching timelines, which they do because they create the one where Zack is still alive and they're all being loaded onto the helicopters, lifeless husks. Because Aerith, he gets her, but you know she's in a coma or whatever. So, and as far as Zack creating timelines, that's one of the bigger mysteries about Rebirth, is because it's never really addressed. I mean, I guess Sephiroth creating timelines isn't addressed either, and this is where my theory comes in. But
so what is this? What is his ultimate purpose with creating all of these different timelines? Is it to give him options so that way he can kind of pick and choose and say, oh, well, timeline F is going the way that I want it to. So that way I can get the black materia, I can end up summoning meteor, I can do all the things that I want to do. Uh-oh, timeline H, somebody messed up. It's not going to work. We're going to get rid of that timeline. Do you think that's what it is? He's making all these different timelines as like in a way to give him different options so that way he can pick and choose which timelines are going to give him the greatest percentage of success.
no, because remember in the original game, he calls Meteor to inflict the biggest wound on the planet as possible. So the live stream has to come try to heal it. He wants to get inside that wound and take control of the live stream, take control of the world. And I think he even says something to the effect of in Advent Children, sail the cosmos with the world as his vessel, I guess, to conquer the universe. But he wants to take over the world. But in Rebirth, when he's traveling with Cloud through the after Cloud and Aerith have their moment at the church in her quote unquote dream in another world, she gives him the white materia and pushes him through a portal. As he's falling through that portal, Sephiroth shows up and shows him the different worlds as they're going through it, as he's explaining his ultimate plan. Instead of just conquering one world like he was going to in the original, he wants to conquer multiple worlds all at once and become some kind of godlike cosmic being, I guess. So his ultimate goal is to bring about the reunion, not just the reunion of all the people, all the soldiers with Genova cells to bring himself back, or it was Genova. The whatever played out in the original timeline. So his ultimate purpose, when he says reunion during that time, is to reunite the worlds as one, with him taking control like he had planned on in the original, just on a grander scale.
I I hear what you're saying, and I think that there is a lot of truth to that. It seems as though the scale of his motivation, what or his end game, has significantly grown from the original to the remake, rebirth,
Oh,
and
absolutely, yeah.
the part three. He no longer wants to be one with the planet. Now he wants to literally become one with
Yep.
everything, all infinite universes, whatever, master of all.
Right. And that comes from, I think, him, and I think it all points to him being post Advent Children Sephiroth, because who else could, because in the original and throughout Remake and Rebirth, Sephiroth, it's not really Sephiroth we're seeing, it's Genova. unless you see a black wing or a black feather, like what's playing in the video. I cut together all scenes where it's black feathers and the black wing Sephiroth, which I believe is the post Advent Children Sephiroth. The original story is still playing out with Genova showing up portraying Sephiroth. So this is where my two Sephiroth theory comes in, is the original Sephiroth from the original timeline that's playing out in the background as this Sephiroth is wreaking havoc is still suspended in the northern cave. He's still there, his body from the events of Nibelheim 5 years prior. Because Cloud has to take him the black materia. That's why this Sephiroth keeps showing up and saying, bring me the black materia, because things have to continue on that original timeline. So this Sephiroth is also trying to push forward the original events from the original game, while also playing another game all on its own, because when Tifa falls into the timeline, she sees a battle in the live stream, and it's Sephiroth's whispers and Sephiroth fighting the planet. So it's like an infection, you know? So when in the third part, Cloud, we know if you played the original, will deliver the black materia to Sephiroth and wake him up in the northern cave. And that is the real Sephiroth from the original. Because anytime he appeared before was Genova. So when that happens, because we know it's going to happen because it happened in the original, when Cloud shows up with the black materia, and it came up right as I was talking about it, so that's a perfect segue. When he shows up with that black materia and gives it, that's why this Sephiroth, he picks it up right here, but he doesn't keep it. Because he knows that the events of the original game have to play out. He knows that Cloud has to deliver that black materia. I know they say it's a fake, but Cloud ends up with the black materia at the end of the game. He's going to deliver it to the northern cave, to Genova, to Sephiroth. So that Sephiroth comes out of suspended animation. This Sephiroth, post-Advent Children Sephiroth, is still running around. So are we going to have two Sephiroths? Are we going to have to fight them both? Are they going to join forces? Are they going to fight each other? Is Zack and are Zack and Aerith going to come back and help us fight them? It opens up a whole bunch of possibilities. If my theory is right.
Well, let's hope we don't have to fight two of them.
That would be ridiculous.
What is bad enough?
Yes, it was. And I'm about to start playing it on hard mode. I played it through. I know this video is a little late and our episode is a little late, but I played. We both like to take our time playing games, and I finished it a little quicker than you did. I played it through again a second time just to like look for things with my theory, and
well, it is interesting. I mean, Sephiroth at the end of the original game, the one wing angel, the final boss, it's a white wing. So, that is the original, I guess you could say the original Sephiroth.
Right.
And I honestly, I never really noticed the black wing in Advent Children until you kind of pointed it out. Why it's black instead of white in the original game, like in Advent Children, I have no idea. I mean, you're saying that it is because he has come back
from the dead, right? And I think Square Enix actually confirmed that. So,
well, I mean, and that makes sense because at the end of the original game, you supposedly did destroy Sephiroth. And here it is at the end of Advent Children, which was that 2 years? Supposed to take place 2 years?
2 years later. After. Yep.
Yeah. And all of a sudden he comes back. You're like, well, where did he come from? So I guess his spirit or energy or something never truly was either died or absorbed back into the live stream, or he was able to retain some essence of himself.
That's what I think, because anybody who, like the soldiers, they were all injected with Genova cells. Sephiroth comes from Genova. Kadaj and forget the other two name. Kadaj and his two quote unquote brothers from Advent Children had Genova cells in them. And that's how he was able to come back. Because we see in Rebirth, he appears through the infected soldiers in the black cloaks. Sephiroth appears in Remake. At the end of Remake, he appears as one who's carrying what does he carry off there at the end of the game? When they're on the tower, right after he's killed the president, Cloud follows him around the building, and they climb the ladder. And he's carrying Genova. How could I? He's carrying Genova, and he's standing there with Genova as Cloud climbs the tower, the ladder. He's standing there as Sephiroth, holding Genova, but as he falls off and goes past Cloud, he turns into a black cloaked, whatever you want to call them, former soldiers that have the Genova cells, they follow around in Rebirth and are heading for the reunion. So Sephiroth has the ability to appear as these people. He does it with Glenn Lodbrok at the end in front of Rufus Shinra.
So it almost sounds like the second Sephiroth, the one that you're talking about, is kind of existing in this pocket space, this edge of creation.
Exactly. Yes.
But he is able to jump into different timelines through people that have been infected with Genova cells. It almost in a sense like Agent Smith from the Matrix can kind of jump into, he can jump in and take over any kind of person that's still plugged into the Matrix. Sephiroth is able to jump in and kind of take over any Genova celled creature.
Right.
No matter the timeline.
Right. And, it could be Genova as appearing as Sephiroth. But when we move forward to Rebirth, as you can see in the clip that's playing right now outside the ancient temple, every time Sephiroth shows up, it's either a black feather, the black wing, and if you notice in the background, the whispers. Which the whispers only intervene to create. Well, in Remake, they intervened to keep things on track, but they've established in Remake, they're being controlled by Sephiroth. So he's not supposed to be here, obviously, because Sephiroth doesn't show up at the Temple of the Ancients in the original game. So there's some correlation between the Whisper showing up and Sephiroth being able to be there. Which I guess they give him the ability to, I'm not really sure, but when you see him in the live stream, fighting the planet, you see the white Whispers, which are controlled by the planet, and at the end of the game, they seem to be controlled by Aerith. And then you have, and that just actually made me think about something that I'll get to here in a second, but you have the Black Whispers and Sephiroth fighting against them. And if those white whispers are actually controlled by Aerith, and the Remake Rebirth, this is what I just thought of, the Remake Rebirth is a branching timeline, then the original Aerith is dead and in the live stream, so those could be her whispers fighting Sephiroth when Tifa is in the live stream. That's a bit of a jump. It's probably just a planet, but it's something I thought of. I just thought I'd throw out there since I'm throwing out my crazy theory anyway. So take it for what you will.
Well, like you said, in Remake, Whispers trying to show up, trying to keep things on track. At the end of Remake, they go into and fight the Whispers' destiny and beat it. So all bets are off at that point.
Right.
However, now Sephiroth, who can kind of exist outside of all the timelines, yet inside the timelines, he can jump whenever he needs to. Since the Whispers no longer are essentially controlling fate and destiny, he can kind of change the timeline by jumping in and out. He can change what people do. He can make, you know, decisions that force people to do certain things. So in a sense, he is the one who can kind of control destiny and fate and the timelines. So it would make sense that he kind of gets his own whispers that he
Right.
can control, because essentially that's what they're doing. They're trying to change. Well, I don't know. I wouldn't say that they're trying to change fate. They're trying to keep things the same. But if he can control the whispers, then essentially he can control them to help shape what the timeline is going to do, what the characters and all the people in that timeline are going to do. So, um, so I definitely think that's what's going on. The white whispers being controlled by Aerith, who the original game Aerith,
Right.
who died and is returned to the live stream. That's an interesting theory that I hadn't contemplated before. So, no, that would make a lot of sense too. So Sephiroth, his essence wasn't fully destroyed at the end of the original game, which is why he could come back for Advent Children. Possibly Aerith's essence wasn't necessarily destroyed and
Right.
in the original game. So she's having an effect here in Remake and Rebirth as well. And that would make sense because the part of her, yes, she did pray for Holy before she was killed in the original game. But I always kind of felt like there had to be a little part of her that was still around,
Yep.
uh, that was kind of controlling Holy.
Yep.
It wasn't until you finally defeated Sephiroth, because he was blocking her.
Right.
And then once you killed him in the original game, then she was able to kind of act and summon Holy. So in a sense, she was still there, her
Right.
essence or whatever. So I don't know. I think that theory that we just kind of created right there
I know, right?
almost lends a little bit more, to me, almost lends a little bit more credence to your Advent Children theory. Both Sephiroth and Aerith from the original games are actually still kind of around,
Right.
kind of behind the scenes controlling things.
Yes.
If Aerith in the original game returned to the timeline, or excuse me, returned to the live stream, we know that Aerith in Remake and Rebirth can uh, has the ability to communicate with the planet. So, what if the original game Aerith, planet Aerith, live stream Aerith, is actually communicating with all of the different Aeriths in all of the different timelines throughout Remake and Rebirth? It would kind of make sense because we
Absolutely.
see at the end of Rebirth all of these different timelines, all of these different eras, and they all have a sense of what is really going on.
Exactly.
So, in a sense, it's almost like original Aerith is communicating with herself through all these different timelines. Something different. That's a
That,
theory that I hadn't really thought about.
we came on to talk about my Sephiroth theory, but now we've got this whole air theory going, which I absolutely love because they Square Enix has admitted they came out with a book. What was it called? What was it called? It's about the making Ultimania.
Yeah.
Final Fantasy VII Rebirth Ultimania, which describes the making of the game. They pretty much admitted, I believe, in that book, that there are multiple Aeriths in these timelines. And we even see Aerith give her white materia to Cloud to give to the Aerith in his world. Because remember, in Costa del Sol, she's talking to Red, and her white materia is empty. It's just a clear orb. So that Aerith had to give in that timeline before Sephiroth comes in to what we think is kill her, because she's the only thing that stands in his way, which is why he's hunting her down in all these timelines. He comes into Earth to kill her, but she's already given the white materia to Cloud to give to his Aerith, which he does, so she can summon Holy, which is just another change from the original game, because the orb never went clear, never went blank, which to me just points to it being a branch timeline.
And it could also be like at the end of Remake when she looks at Sephiroth, because that's the first time she is face to face with Sephiroth.
Mm-hmm.
Your post-Advent children Sephiroth that can exist in all the timelines. It's the first time that she's face to face with him, and like you said, she says, "You're wrong."
Right.
And after that, that's when we really start to, because they go in, that's when we really start to see all of the different timelines existing throughout Rebirth.
Right.
And so it seems like that's when Aerith really starts to understand, oh, wait a minute, there are multiple timelines, there are multiple Aeriths, there are multiple, all of these things. And so maybe that's when she actually starts communicating with the planet / the original Aerith that is returned to the live stream.
She does seem to be clued in on what's going on. Even in Remake, she knows what's about to happen. But she does, to touch on your point, she does seem to know what's going on, even in Remake, because she even tells Cloud not to fall in love with her. She has somehow, when Marlene grabs her hand when the plate's fallen in Sector 7, sees Aerith's death, which she relays in Rebirth to Zack, and tells Zack that Sephiroth kills her. She saw Aerith's death. Aerith knew it was coming because she looks down at Marlene and puts her finger to her lips and, type of deal, like, keep it to yourself. And I'm going to pause this video here because there's an interesting point I want to make in this scene particularly. So she was clued in, but in Rebirth, when they're talking in Junon, her and Red, because Cloud walks up and hears a different voice in Aerith's room, and then Red walks out, and we come to find out later that it was actually Red talking to her. But in Junon, they're talking about, do you see the whispers anymore? And she kind of alludes to the fact that she can't really remember like she could in Remake. So, and, the Aerith that he goes to, they wake up in a different world after they fall from the Temple of the Ancients. She tells him, think of this as a dream, my dream. But really, they're in a different world because we see a different stamp, which the stamps, the different breeds of stamp, they signify a different world. And this is a different world entirely, separate from all the other ones. So that Aerith knows what's going on. She knows she has to give Cloud the white materia to give to herself, basically. But yeah, we just came up with that now, and I'm liking it more and more the more we talk about it.
Me too.
But
again, like I said earlier, that theory about Aerith does, to me, lend itself towards your theory about the post-Advent children, Sephiroth, being the Sephiroth that we keep interacting with throughout Remake and Rebirth. It's the two kind of go hand in hand.
Right.
I can see that.
All right, so this is the last point I wanted to make. In this scene, watch what happens right after you regain control. Look, the whispers are playing out just like the original, but when she looks up, right before Sephiroth drops down, I want to point something out here. And I'm going to pause it in just a second. When this plays out, you can see me struggling to figure out that you got to hit both R2 and L2 at the same time. I was alternating there, so you got to hit them at the same time. But right here, he stops himself like he does in the original. But we've entered into that portal, and Cloud is the only one who enters in. And this is the part I wanted to see. There it is. The black feather dropping in front of Aerith right before Sephiroth. Actually, there's two on the screen right there. Bottom left, top right. Cloud is the only one. They create a portal the same way they did at the end of Remake, except Cloud's the only one who enters this pocket universe. And we see here these black feathers dropping down, which, if my theory is correct, signify post-Advent children Sephiroth. And look at all the black feathers, which signifies, and the whispers are there too, which could signify post-Advent children Sephiroth inside this pocket universe. And if we keep watching this scene, which is a major spoiler, by the way, but I think we've already moved past the part where we spoil everything, but if we keep watching this scene, the original plays out, except he saves her in this pocket universe where the black feathers are, post-Advent children Sephiroth, which I don't know why he would come down, because obviously he's going to be way more powerful than Cloud at this current juncture in the story. Why he would let him deflect his sword. Or if Cloud was just strong enough to do it. But outside of that pocket universe, the original plays out. It's actually Jenova appearing as Sephiroth, like in the original, and then she turns back into Jenova for the boss fight. So we get the boss fight with Jenova from the original story in the original timeline where Aerith is dead. But the pocket universe was created where we have post-Advent children Sephiroth, and there's actually going to be a part 2 to this. Episode 2 is actually going to be part 2 to our Final Fantasy VII discussion, where I discuss another theory I have about the end. We're going to talk about the end of the game and another theory I have, but I noticed that in my second playthrough, all the black feathers in that little pocket universe where post-Advent children Sephiroth comes down to try to kill Aerith, except Cloud deflects his sword, but the original Sephiroth, who is actually Jenova, does kill Aerith outside that pocket universe. So that's the last thing I noticed about it. I'm not sure what it means yet. It's still a little confusing because of the end of the game and everything, and I guess we'll have to see how the third game and the story plays out there. But it's just something I wanted to point out here while we were talking about this.
Well, I can't remember the videos, but I think somebody theorized this. Just kind of threw it out. And so I'll throw it out to kind of end this. We can talk about it a little bit more in the part 2. So you see all the colored lights that are happening right now.
Right.
And when you see the colored lights, that means that a new timeline is being created. And
exactly.
So here we've got 2 different ones. Aerith lives and Aerith dies. Cloud is now existing in both of them. I think within the Final Fantasy community, most people agree with that. He is now kind of stuck in between 2 worlds.
Yes, I believe that too.
Because Sephiroth can jump in and out of different timelines. He can kind of exist in all of them and yet none of them at the same time. But what if, because Cloud was in the edge of creation when those branching timelines happened, what if in the third game, now Cloud can jump in between timelines? Like he kind of was accidentally given that ability, because he still sees Aerith at the end of Rebirth, but nobody else can. So he is existing in the timeline where Aerith does not exist, but he is also existing in the timeline where she does exist. So maybe he's able to jump around in between timelines, just as Sephiroth did. And who knows, maybe Aerith is kind of able to do that in a sense as well. Or maybe she's able to communicate with the planet. But I thought that was kind of an interesting theory. We'll have to see if that does happen in the third. I don't know I put too much stock into it, but it'd be a good point to kind of debate.
Right. Yeah, and we'll definitely get into that more so in the in episode 2, part 2 of this discussion, where we talk about the ending and Aerith's fate, because I actually believe that she's alive. There was a version of her that died, but they've admitted that there's multiple versions of Aerith's in multiple worlds,
Sure.
And I believe that when Cloud deflected the sword there in that little pocket universe, because at the end of Remake, when they're in the pocket universe, they create a separate timeline when they fight Sephiroth and defy fate. I believe in this little pocket universe, when he's the only one who enters the portal, so he's the only one who sees it. And I believe you're right when what you say he's got one foot in each world, one where she lives, one where she dies. That's why he can still see her. He can see the tear in the sky. I believe that he created a branching timeline from that point. But we'll get back to that in part 2. But for now, I think that's going to do it for this part. Obviously, I've given Drew Dog some things to think about here, and we'll probably be back. We'll probably be back with a part 2 to this discussion. But we'll definitely be back with part 2 involving what we just talked about, where I think Aerith's alive. We'll talk about the ending. We'll break it down more. But in this one, I just wanted to get my Sephiroth theory out there, post-Advent Children Sephiroth, which now involves a post-Advent Children Aerith in the live stream from the original game. And we just kind of came up with that off the top of our head. But it also adds credibility to my theory. So, sure. I don't know. This might actually be true. But was there anything else you wanted to add before we close things out?
Square Enix should hire us as writers for the 3rd game.
Oh, absolutely. I'll even voice act somebody if they want me to.
Oh yeah. I don't care if it's Shinra Soldier number 3. I'll be that guy. Exactly.
Yeah. But that's going to do it for us for this episode. And let us know what you think below. What do you think about my theory about Sephiroth, post-Advent Children Sephiroth coming back? What do you think about the new theory we just came up with post-Advent, I guess we can call her original timeline Aerith in the live stream, fighting on behalf of the live stream with the White Whispers? And what do you think about maybe facing 2 Sephiroths at the end of the 3rd part of the remake series? That is, yep, that's pretty much the face I made when this theory started playing out in my head, and I was because I was like, that's got to be post-Advent Children Sephiroth. But then I'm like, wait a minute, the original Sephiroth from the original game is still in suspended animation in the North Crater. So what's going to happen when Cloud inevitably gives him the black materia and he comes back to I guess to life, or he comes out of his coma or out of suspended animation? So it's a lot to think about. Let us know what you think below, and we'll be back in part 2, or episode 2, part 2 of our Final Fantasy VII Rebirth discussion.